I might have to come up with another $200 a month.
With property tax bills arriving soon, homeowners are under pressure again.
People couldn't pay their mortgage because of COVID. People couldn't pay their mortgage because their taxes have gone up.
Across the country, 1 in 10 homeowners with a mortgage are behind on payments. And the situation may get worse now that a federal program allowing homeowners to pause their mortgage payments has expired.
Help is available.
What resources are available?
Housing counseling is extremely effective.
2 experts weigh in.
We're running the risk of literally taxing people out of their homes.
Help for homeowners, next on City Inside Out. Welcome to this edition of City Inside Out. I'm your host, Brian Callanan. With the recent expiration of Seattle's eviction moratorium, some housing advocates are bracing for a wave of new problems for renters and landlords. But along with those concerns is another issue in the housing market: foreclosures for homeowners. A federal forbearance program that allowed homeowners to pause their mortgage payments during the pandemic expired at the end of last year. And that's left many people at risk of being displaced and unsure of where to turn for help, as local agencies scramble to provide aid from the city, county, and state as soon as possible. For the last 2 years, the COVID pandemic has brought major crises like affordable housing and homelessness into sharp focus. But Joseph Siu had those problems in his sights long before that.
So it was a terrible, terrible situation.
The Bothell homeowner had a series of injuries in 2016 that forced him to retire from his work as a sales consultant and pay bills like his mortgage with a third of his usual salary, a fixed income situation faced by 65 million people nationwide on Social Security.
And the property tax is one of the things that can cause them nightmares.
That nightmare of rising property taxes, along with lost income during the COVID pandemic, are 2 reasons why roughly 5% of homeowners in our state, more than 110,000 households, were behind on mortgage payments last year.
The jump in rates in new loans went from 1.4% to 4.7%, so that creates a major barrier.
Those figures are ticking upwards, and state lawmakers are trying to fight back by offering property tax exemptions for nonprofit family adult homes, host homes for homeless youth, and for accessory dwelling units rented to low-income tenants.
House Bill 1841 offers another tool to help provide more affordable options for low-income households.
Joseph was able to qualify for a King County program 2 years ago that has saved him nearly $500 a month in property taxes, an amount he says has been critical to allow him and his wife to stay in their home and survive.
It's between whether you have food on the table or you got to go skip a meal.
But with rising home prices and voter-approved levies pushing property taxes up, Siu hopes governmental leaders can provide more mortgage relief now rather than put funding towards homelessness services later.
If we can think a little bit harder and spend a few $1,000s more on this end, we're saving millions of dollars on the backside.
Housing counselor Linda Taylor is worried about stories like Siu's and says our region could soon see foreclosures increase.
I'm very concerned.
Taylor is vice president of housing and financial empowerment for the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. And after 25 years working with mortgage relief, she's dealt with disaster before.
There'll be homeowners that will be panicking. There'll be homeowners that will not call, will not follow through, but we're here to help you do that.
One new avenue for help stemming from the COVID pandemic is the HAF, or Homeowner Assistance Fund, part of the American Rescue Plan Act that provided $173 million to our state to prevent mortgage delinquencies and foreclosures.
People are excited about HAF. They know about HAF.
And HAF is needed now more than ever, with the federal forbearance program that allowed people to pause their mortgage payments during the pandemic expiring 3 months ago, and with more housing scammers now on the prowl.
This stuff is ripe for the pickings of fraud.
The state received 10% of the funding for half in 2021 to run a pilot program and will now create a plan to deliver the rest of those funds by September of 2025, a plan Taylor says is underway.
So far, so good. We have the commission in our corner, the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. So we're so far, so good.
But the challenge now is one of communication, reaching out to homeowners who may not be aware of all the programs at the federal, state, county, and city level that can provide much needed aid.
I'll be in every pulpit that will let me in, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll have classes. If I have to hold them every Saturday, I will.
It's a lesson about helping homeowners, sometimes lost in the competing headlines about the pandemic, that people in need, like Joseph Sue, are eager to learn.
This is one of the ways we can stop people from losing their home.
And joining us for more on this topic, we have with us Denise Rodriguez. She is the Executive Director of the Washington Homeownership Resource Center. Thank you for being here, Denise. We also have John Arthur Wilson, the King County Assessor. Thank you for being here too, John. And Denise, I want to start with you. Can you briefly tell us what the Washington Homeownership Resource Center is and what it does?
I sure can. Washington Homeownership Resource Center, or WHRC for short, is a statewide nonprofit with a mission to increase and preserve homeownership in the state of Washington. And we primarily do that through a hotline and an online portal where we provide information and referral to people who are aspiring to become homeowners, so we can help home buyers connect to down payment assistance, Habitat for Humanity, community land trusts, other programs to make homeownership more attainable for low and moderate income people. And then we also steward the state's official foreclosure prevention hotline, where we can help connect homeowners in distress to foreclosure prevention resources and help them save their home. And then around the edges of all that, we also can refer to counseling around refinancing, property taxes, repair assistance. And so that pretty much sums it up. We've been around since 1995.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And I just wanted to ask you, and thank you for that background there, Denise. We're seeing a lot of these protections that were in place during the pandemic, like forbearance for homeowners, they're starting to expire. Do you think we're going to see a spike in foreclosures? Is that already happening? Can you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. We've already seen a spike in calls to the hotline. I would say right around when the federal unemployment benefits wound down, we started to get a bit more calls. And now as the forbearance programs are winding down, we are getting increasing calls. I think it is going to be difficult for homeowners because even though the protections are going away, their incomes may not have stabilized yet. And so for a lot of them, there's still going to be this sort of ramping up period for them to get back to normal. And there's also some challenges with how they may be able to start making payments again and what happens to those payments that were missed during the forbearance. But there is a lot of support for homeowners who are in that circumstance. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later in the conversation. But definitely, if that sounds like something a person is experiencing, there's a lot of help out there for them.
Okay, and we are going to get into some of those solutions in just a bit, but I want to get a snapshot of what's happening right now. And John, let me get your perspective here. We talked about this in our setup piece, our area's rising home values, which always gets people talking about tax assessments. We've also had some levy measures passed here locally too, which can have an even bigger impact on property taxes, especially for people with limited income. Do we have a lot of homeowners in trouble when it comes to possible foreclosure in King County? How would you describe the situation right now?
Well, I think it's definitely an increasing number of folks that, you know, it's sort of the double or maybe triple whammy of COVID, inflation, an uncertain job market that is coming back, but not evenly. And I think what you've seen is a lot of taxpayers, homeowners are finding that the cost of owning that home and the cost of just living in that home is outstripping what they're bringing home. And so, yeah, we're hearing more and more from people about, gee whiz, why'd everything go up? You know, you see property taxes have gone up double digits, but their income hasn't.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of different things to cover here when it comes to possible solutions to this. And John, maybe I can stay with you here because I know the county has programs for property tax exemptions for people who are disabled or older, like Joseph Sue. We highlighted him in our setup piece there. But adding to that, I know the state legislature has a few bills in the works this year, property tax exemptions for nonprofit adult family homes, host homes for homeless youth, accessory dwelling units rented to low-income tenants. I'm trying to figure out if what the state is doing with these bills, is this going to help? Is this going to have an effect along with what King County is already offering?
Well, we are literally in the closing days of the legislative session, so several of these bills, unfortunately, have died. I've got to say, from my perspective, this, in terms of housing, has been a very frustrating legislative session because I think there's more that we need to do, and we should be doing some things that we had proposed to the legislature that we couldn't even, frankly, get out of committee. And I think that's something that the legislature in the next year or so is going to have to finally step up and deal with, of how do we rebalance our system so we're not so dependent upon property taxes, and we recognize we're running the risk of literally taxing people out of their homes.
Right. And we're going to talk about some of the wish list that you have there in terms of what else needs to happen on this topic here. But Denise, I just wanted to make sure I talked with you about it. Do you think the state's effort this session are going to help this situation with homeowners? Just some basic thoughts on this one.
Well, I agree with John. I think that we definitely could have done a lot more. And we are already playing catch up on trying to get a handle on the lack of affordability around housing. It's no longer just a problem for the King County. It's definitely spread around to other parts of the state. There is one bill that we're tracking that still has a chance, that is designed to increase the availability of accessory dwelling units. So people could have a basement apartment and a backyard cottage. It just allows us to tuck more potentially affordable units into what is already there. That bill is still waiting to get out of committee and be scheduled for a Senate floor vote. And the deadline for that would be this Friday. So there's still about 24 hours left for that bill to have a chance. And as far as the budget itself goes, I think we were really heartened to see that there is some funding put aside for foreclosure prevention. So we think that is actually very timely and is going to really do a lot to help homeowners who are struggling.
Okay, great. And Denise, I want to make sure that I jump to you and talk about the Homeowner Assistance Fund, or HAF, which I know has been taking up a lot of your time recently. This is the process of distributing $173 million our state was given as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. So the State Department of Commerce has been working on this, the Housing Finance Commission as well. You've been working on a pilot program with HAF here. I want to talk about this. The hope is to get all this money distributed by September of 2025. Where are we with this pilot and in terms of getting these HAF dollars out there?
I'm so glad you asked. The HAF pilot is live. And so that is really exciting. What HAF will do is actually help people who are unable to come to a resolution through negotiation with their loan servicer. It'll actually help pay whatever they need to in order to get all caught up and back on track. There is a cap on how much. I believe the cap is $60,000. You have to be referred into this program by a housing counselor. So that is the really important part. And I will also say that even if there weren't any HAF, housing counseling is extremely effective in helping people resolve issues with their loan servicer. The housing counselor can help you negotiate. They sort of know the lay of the land. They know the lingo. They know the process. It's a huge asset to have somebody like a housing counselor helping you with this process. And people who work with housing counselors get better results. In this case, if there isn't a resolution available through all of our normal channels, which are quite strong in Washington state, then this HAF program is available. Right now, it is a sort of limited edition because it's a pilot program. So it is just for people who have received a notice of trustee sale, which is the last notice, the one that has a sale date on it, or who are in imminent danger of losing their home because of HOA fees or property taxes.
Okay.
The full HAF program hasn't launched yet. It'll be launching later this spring. That will actually be open to a much wider range of homeowners. So people who are potentially earlier in a foreclosure process or who haven't received those notices I just talked about. So we're really excited to see that full program launch. And that is going to definitely come with quite a lot of media outreach and grassroots outreach to make sure people are hearing about that program. But for now, the pilot program is going really well, and people are, getting referred in. They're getting their approval. It's going very quickly. So we're really happy to see that.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Denise. And John, I just wanted to ask you on this, if you think HAF is going to help out here, because I'm thinking about some of the challenges King County has had in distributing federal aid to renters and landlords. We've seen a few headlines on that. What is it going to be like for the state to try to get these HAF dollars out to homeowners?
I think that's a big challenge, and I think, thank goodness, we have organizations like Denise that are working to get those dollars out. I hear a lot of times from taxpayers who don't know where to turn to, and one of the things I've got to say that has been a great part of my job is working with Denise over the years to better connect taxpayers with the assistance that her organization can offer. It's frustrating sometimes, I think, because we at times, in order to kind of protect ourselves from fraud, over bureaucratize how we get money out the door to people. And people that are in desperate situations don't have time, and sometimes, frankly, the bandwidth to fill out reams of paperwork when they just need some help and need some cash to get them through.
Yeah. And John, let me stick with you on this, because I know that in your work with King County, you're working to put some programs out there too that can help when it comes to people who are older, disabled, or whatever else. And I saw this on your website. We have more than 26,000 qualified seniors and disabled persons who have yet to register for property tax exemption, and only 1 in 100 of those eligible for deferrals are currently enrolled. Why are so few people who are eligible applying for these programs? Is it too confusing for them? And how do you try to change that situation?
Well, I wish I had an answer to that one, Brian. Part of it is sadly the senior disabled veteran exemption program and deferral is probably two of the best kept secrets in all of local government. It's surprising even still that people are unaware of them. One of the shames was, and this is one of the COVID impacts, we had, after we had worked with Denise and others to get the economic threshold raised up from 40,000 to a little over 58 grand, we knew it would potentially add a lot more people to the roll.
Right.
And we were ready to go out and do a massive outreach effort, but then came COVID and we had to shut that all down. Okay. We're trying to start to see whether in 22 we'll be able to feather it up again. But it's frustrating because you see that there are so many people that could be helped by these programs, and they're just not aware of them.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping a show like this can help bring some awareness to this. And maybe, Denise, I can go to you on this, because in working with this, with HAF, the Department of Commerce says this could potentially offer help to people who are making up to 100% of our area median income. So that's a lot of folks here. And you're talking potentially about raising that threshold even higher here. How do you raise awareness about programs this and really try to get people to access these programs?
Again, another $1 million question. I would say, in the past, we've done outreach campaigns where we've done public service announcements. We've had billboard ads, bus ads, all kinds of different things. And we really get a small return on that. The thing that seems the most impactful for people is to get something directly mailed to them, ideally by their loan servicer. So this is a person who is in a forbearance or a person who's coming out of forbearance. Let's send them something directly to their house saying, there's a program that might be able to help you if you're struggling with this transition. It isn't always possible to do that. And so we've done other things where we might send something to every household in an entire zip code. That is a zip code that has a lot of folks in forbearance. And so really the targeted mailers seem to be very effective, but they're also expensive and kind of very hard to target. So we're going to really count on a lot of, I'd say, elected officials and other government entities, to be that messenger out there to make sure people know about the program. Right. We're going to count on loan servicers to be great, strong partners like they always have been. And, really reach out through our community networks and community-based organizations as well.
Yeah, I was going to say we talked with the Urban League for our setup piece here, and they're an important partner in this too. But let me jump back to you, Denise, on one point here, because John had brought this up earlier, this idea of scams that might face homeowners as we emerge from the COVID pandemic. Unfortunately, this happens every time we have a natural disaster in the wake of it. Are there some examples of mortgage relief scams you can think of that people should be on the lookout for right now?
I can't really think of any specific examples of mortgage relief scams that are happening right now, but I can definitely say during the Great Recession, they were everywhere and we are starting to see them pop up here. So, okay, I do have an example. One example would be where somebody says, if you pay us $3,000, we'll take care of everything and we'll resolve your foreclosure situation. And then you pay them $3,000 and nothing changes.
Right.
Or you get into a situation where they're asking you to pay a certain amount per month until your situation resolves. And then the question is, what's their incentive to resolve your situation if the payments are going to stop? It's really important that people connect with vetted, legitimate resources, because unfortunately, the predators do really sort of ramp up their activity when they know the folks are vulnerable and desperate.
Yeah. Yeah. John, your thoughts on this one? I know scammers reach out to people about their property taxes too. What should people be aware of? What kinds of techniques are you knowing about in terms of what scammers are using?
Well, to echo kind of what Denise was talking about, I think, the principal thing is beware of offers that seem too good to be true, because they are too good to be true.
Yeah.
Part of what we see right now is property tax bills have just gone out. And I'm sure for those that get that property tax bill directly at home, it's an eye opener. It's caused them to go, oh my God. We also know, though, that frankly, predatory buyers or scammers watch that time of year, and they know how to identify who may be financially vulnerable. And they'll come after you and say, it's terrible that mean old assessor sent you that outrageous tax bill, but we're here to help you. We will buy your house. Don't worry. It's an all cash deal. Just sign right here and we'll take care of it. And yeah, they buy your house, but they buy it probably for a fraction of what it's actually worth. And then you have nowhere to go. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get out in time before your property taxes are due. So we urge people, be careful. If you have a question, give us a call, give somebody like Denise a call and say, hey, I got this offer for this. Does this really make sense? And don't just grab at it, because the last thing we want is people who are financially stressed already to be put in even more stress and distress because somebody's running a scam on them. And we've worked with the prosecutor. We haven't brought one of these yet, but I've talked to the prosecutor that if we find somebody that we think is willfully doing this, not just trying to cut a deal, but willfully trying to scam you, I want to go after them on criminal charges, because I think it is a crime.
All right. Wow. Thank you for breaking that down, John. That's an important piece of this. Denise, maybe I can go back to you here. And I wanted to talk about this issue a little bit more broadly. Or was there another piece you wanted to talk about with scams there, Denise?
I did. I just wanted to add one more thing to that. And because John touched on it, which is that there is a certain point in a foreclosure process, whether it be tax related or related to your mortgage, where it becomes a matter of public record. And so then it is very easy for anybody to go and look up and see that your particular address is associated with this foreclosure process, and then they can target you with that information. So I think that's one of the things where we want to always make sure that we're really getting people to the right resources so that they don't fall victim to that kind of scam. Nothing breaks our heart more than to get a call from somebody to our hotline and find out they've already been scammed, and they're out several $1,000s, and now that's another crisis on top of what they were already dealing with.
Got it. Okay. Denise, I'll jump back to you here. And I did want to take a broader look at this as we start getting closer to wrapping up here. I know you talked about the legislative session earlier here. You've been lobbying for more dollars to try to prevent foreclosures here. What else can the state do? What other programs are needed here to get the help that's actually necessary out there?
That is a whole nother program. There's quite a lot I think the state can be involved in. In particular right now, there's a lot of conversation happening about the home ownership gap between Black Washingtonians and white Washingtonians and other BIPOC communities and homes. And so the state is currently trying to ramp up taking action on that to work to close that home ownership gap. So I think we're probably going to see quite a lot happening next session. The state could really do a lot to support down payment assistance to help people who are at a median or low income be able to get into a homeownership situation. I personally would love to see the state try to keep properties in the homes or in the hands of people who intend to live in that property. One of the biggest drivers of increased cost of housing in our communities is investment from non-residents. So I think that there could be some action on that. obviously around zoning and construction finance. The Housing Trust Fund is a huge resource in Washington State for creating affordable housing for both renters and homeowners. And so I think, strong investment in that and continued investment, would be a really, compelling action that the state could take to increase the affordability of homes throughout the housing ecosystem.
Got it. John, what's on your wish list here? I know you're talking with assessors all around the state. Some thoughts about this to try to change the calculus on what's going on here?
I think two things I wish that the legislature would do, hopefully in this next session. They're not going to get it done this session, but one, we proposed this session what we called a Renter Relief Act that would have provided property tax relief for landlords to pass on to their tenants for buildings 25 years and older, or ADUs and that were affordable, like at 50 to 60% of AMI. That'd help a whole lot, because one of the things we're seeing is values are going up. These older apartment buildings are getting knocked down. And a very graphic example of it is frankly in the ID. Right next to the House of Hong, which I used to go to regularly, which has now been boarded up and graffiti covered, there's a huge new apartment building going up, and that is the first of probably a lot that will go up in the ID. But those people that live in those older apartment buildings will be displaced and have nowhere to go. The second thing we need, and Denise sort of touched on it, is Washington State is one of 10 of the 50 states that does not have what in most states is called a homestead exemption or a homeowner exemption. And we're overdue. We really need to do that. That if you live in the house, you own the house, we should give you some break on your property taxes and pass that along and make sure that you get a chance to stay in that home.
Thank you very much. Need to wrap up your 30-second version, if you can, Denise, to that homeowner who might be watching this right now, feeling a little desperate. What advice do you want to give?
I would say don't wait. Reach out right away. So the hotline is 877-894-4663, 877-894-4663. That will reach one of our information and referral specialists. They will find out what's happening with you, what your situation is, help you get referred to legal aid or housing counseling, whichever is the appropriate resource for you, and get you started on resolving your issue. And again, I cannot stress, do not wait. Definitely call right away. It's a time-sensitive process, and it can take a while to work through things. So you don't really want to wait until the last minute when your options might be fewer.
Got it. John, some last words for homeowners here, please.
Well, I think the same thing is don't wait until foreclosure notice, a tax lien foreclosure lands on your doorstep. If you're in trouble, call us now. Sadly, our tools are fairly limited. Denise probably has, frankly, more than we have, but we can set people up on a payment program. There are other things where we can look at it. Maybe we were wrong on your value, but please, our goal is never to try to tax you out of your home. We want you to stay in that home.
Okay, thank you both very much for this, and we will be right back. What are people saying on social media about the need for more help for homeowners? One person writes, hundreds of thousands of U.S. households will exit forbearance in the coming months without a plan for returning their loans to good standing with their lenders. Another group says, owning a home is the American dream, but it's out of reach for renters who aren't able to save for it when their rents keep going up and up and up. We'd like to know what you think. Send us an email at contact@seattlechannel.org or find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Coming up next week, shining a light on the crisis of missing Indigenous women in Washington. State lawmakers are considering a bill to create a new Amber Alert type system to notify the media and public when a tribal person is missing. But will it pass before the session ends? We get the latest from sponsor Representative Deborah Lakanoff on the next City Inside Out. I hope you join us.